based on the untold true story.
You've all been selected because we're going to need your knowledge and we're going to need your skill.
They're the Monuments Men.
The Nazis are taking everything, and we better get it back.
It feels like a treasure hunt.
That doesn't make it any less dangerous.
They're not soldiers.
I've never shot anyone before.
But on February 7th,
if Germany falls, they're to destroy everything.
It's your responsibility now.
They'll become heroes.
We have some unfinished business.
We gotta go!
The Monuments Men, rated PG-13, February 7th.
The Jewish Channel's Weekend Review. Scarlett Johansson in the mix on Israel and Palestine, singing the life of Carole King. Who is Netanyahu's son dating, and why do Israeli politicians care? And more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Weekend Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Weekend Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. This week's Super Bowl will, for the second year, involve controversy over Israel. Actress Scarlett Johansson has recently signed on to be the celebrity representative of SodaStream, that make-your-soda-at-home machine.
Soda that's better for you and all of us. Less sugar, less bottles.
And SodaStream is an Israeli company with significant manufacturing facilities in the West Bank settlement of Ma'ale Adumim. All of this is coming together in a Super Bowl ad this Sunday. Johansson has been criticized for becoming a de facto spokesperson for the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, and many Israel supporters saw her deal with SodaStream as an endorsement of Israel's policies too. Johansson responded to those critics on Friday. In a statement to the Huffington Post, Johansson said she, quote, never intended on being the face of any social or political movement as part of my affiliation with SodaStream. However, in what she called an effort to, quote, clear the air, she continued, I remain a supporter of economic cooperation and social interaction between a democratic Israel and Palestine. SodaStream is a company that is not only committed to the environment, but to building a bridge to peace between Israel and Palestine, supporting neighbors working alongside each other, receiving equal pay, equal benefits, and equal rights. That is what is happening in their Ma'ale Adumim factory every working day. Those who argue with Johansson cite the fact that the Palestinians working in SodaStream's West Bank facilities have few other economic opportunities due to Israel's occupation. Specifically, Oxfam International, a human rights group for which Johansson has been an Oxfam ambassador since 2007, added a statement about Johansson to its website stating, Oxfam believes that businesses that operate in settlements further the ongoing poverty and denial of rights of the Palestinian communities that we work to support. Oxfam is opposed to all trade from Israeli settlements, which are illegal under international law. Oxfam is now considering the implications of her new statement and what it means for Ms. Johansson's role as an Oxfam Global Ambassador. As you can see, this Super Bowl ad has offered an opportunity for many parts of the debate about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to be incorporated. Other facts being tossed around include the status of the settlement of Ma'ale Adumim on one side and how SodaStream got there on the other. For those taking SodaStream's side, Ma'ale Adumim is one of those settlements that is expected to be part of Israel proper under almost every Israeli-Palestinian peace proposal. For those opposing SodaStream, they note that the company located its facilities there because of Israeli government incentives, including getting the site for free for 6 months at reduced rent after that, and a cash payment of $100,000 for renovations. But speaking of blonde women and controversies around Israel, it is of course especially the Jewish state where the love interest of the Prime Minister's son can become a matter of concern for the citizenry. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's son Yair is dating a Norwegian woman who is not Jewish, which led to statements from the ultra-Orthodox Sephardic Shas Party chairman Aryeh Deri saying, "Woe is us if it is true. I try not to raise personal criticism, but if, heaven forbid, this is true, it is no longer a personal matter. It is a symbol of the Jewish people." Even a member of Netanyahu's own political party of Likud, member of Knesset Moshe Feiglin, was given to comment, quote, "All I can say is that it is very unfortunate." Of course, the Prime Minister himself once dated a non-Jewish woman. Benjamin Netanyahu's second wife converted before they married in 1981. Yair was born to the elder Netanyahu's third wife. But if you're looking for good Jewish boys, where better than among the cast of a new musical about singer-songwriter Carole King? Meredith Gansman reports.
At Sunday night's 56th Annual Grammy Awards, legendary Jewish singer-songwriter Carole King showed she's still got it. taking the stage with contemporary singer-songwriter Sarah Bareilles. And now her story is playing Broadway in Beautiful, the Carole King musical. Beautiful depicts King, born Carol Joan Klein in Brooklyn, as a young songwriter with her husband and partner Jerry Goffin, along with their friends and competitors Cynthia Weil and Barry Mann. Jake Epstein plays Goffin, opposite Jessie Mueller as King.
Jessie's amazing in the show. I love getting to work with her. That's been one of the highlights for me is where I've been such a big fan of hers. And all of our scenes are so connected, and you know, I don't know if I'll ever be that professionally close with anyone in my whole life.
Jared Spector plays Barry Mann, and both young actors are originating roles on Broadway for the first time. They both had a chance to meet the real-life men on which their characters are based.
They gave us some ideas and little tidbits about who they are, and you know, the first thing Barry said is, "I never knew I was a hypochondriac. Someone they had to tell me." And it seems like not a big deal, but it's actually really telling.
However, Epstein found portraying Goffin's dark past intimidating.
I was very nervous meeting Jerry and knowing that Jerry was coming because of the story, because that it's portraying him in this time of his life when he was going through a lot and he was extremely troubled.
That time was the 1950s, 60s, and 70s when Goffin, King, and Mann were just a few of the many Jewish songwriters who churned out the biggest hits of the day right here inside New York's famous Brill Building, a centerpiece of the music industry.
Were the Jewish kids, you know, the ones who were particularly learning to play the piano or learning to play instruments? I mean, I know it was sort of more common for many families to have a piano in the home and for everybody to
or
play.
The parents, like there's something about the Jewish parents that
Yeah.
allowed kids to take piano lessons and have some kind of edge over.
We don't know why, but we're very grateful.
To see more from Jake Epstein and Jared Spector, now appearing in Beautiful, the Carole King musical on Broadway, tune in to the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. It's an episode that continues to affect race relations more than 30 years after it happened. The shooting of 4 young black men on a subway train by Bernie Goetz was the subject of a panel at the 92nd Street Y. Christian Needon has that story.
They didn't die? Well, that's God, what God has wanted, evidently, if there is a God. But I, in my heart, was a murderer.
This is video of a man confessing to shooting 4 people in a New York City subway car. The man is Bernard Goetz, and his actions on a southbound 2 train on December 22, 1984, led him to be labeled alternately as a hero, a vigilante, and an attempted murderer. Goetz, who was Jewish, was prosecuted for and ultimately acquitted of that last charge, though he was convicted of carrying an unlicensed loaded weapon and served 8 months in prison. Almost 3 decades later, Goetz's trial was re-examined last week at the 92nd Street Y in Manhattan, in partnership with Fordham Law School's Forum on Law, Culture, and Society as part of their Trials and Errors series. A panel discussion was led by Fordham's Thane Rosenbaum and included Goetz's defense attorney Barry Slotnick, prosecutor Gregory Waples, juror Mark Leslie, and celebrity journalist Geraldo Rivera. Waples prosecuted the case during a period when New York City residents were fed up with high rates of violent crime, and he noted how a popular perception that Goetz acted in self-defense made finding an unbiased jury difficult.
3 years passed from the time of the shooting until the trial. I think it's fair to say my case did not get better during those 3 years. But I think the public interest in having a trial, irrespective of the ultimate outcome, was an important factor.
Defense attorney Barry Slotnick said he was undecided about taking Goetz on as a client until he saw the massive media that had descended around Goetz's home.
There were people all over the place. Geraldo, your kin, they were there. And I said, this is a case I have to look at. And the next thing I knew, I was his lawyer. And it was a good thing. It was a real good thing. Because I hadn't seen the videotape confession. No one had seen it at that time.
Yet media coverage of Getz in advance of the trial made his prosecution more difficult. In his book Subway Gunman, a juror's account of the Bernard Getz trial, Mark Leslie wrote that when Getz appeared in court during jury selection, some 30 prospective jurors openly applauded. Rivera reported on the case at the time and said he understood the support for Getz, but found it to be rooted in the city's racial divide.
So it was very, very easy for the white population particularly, but more generally the law-abiding or the fearful population to relate immediately to Bernard Getz. Bernard Getz became a fake hero in the sense that everybody invested in him. Unless you were the parent of a black teenager, just like in the Trayvon Martin parallel, everybody else in this town was rooting for Bernard Getz.
To see more from the panel discussion on the Bernard Getz case, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. Finally, this week's episode of Up Close examines how perceptions change reality. NPR's On the Media co-host Bob Garfield is the author of Can't Buy Me Like, which talks about how the age of social media means that corporations need to change the way they do business. And Brandeis University professor Theodore Sassone, author of The New American Zionism, reveals that all is not as it has seemed when it comes to young American Jews' relationship with Israel. Here are some highlights from the interview with Bob Garfield. In the larger discussion that we have going on about what is the future of media and what is the future of advertising in media and how are we going to make all this work, the answer you're giving with this book is basically we're not.
That's the answer. I mean, there is the future of media, which is one question, and there's the future of the media business, which is a question that I've answered, I think, years ago, and that is catastrophe. The growth of mass media and mass advertising, it lasted 3 centuries, and it seemed like an entitlement. Not only an entitlement, there was almost like a physical force of the universe, some Newtonian force that guaranteed there would always be mass media feeding mass marketing and vice versa. But come to discover, it was just an accident of history. And what ended that accident of history was the internet. For a number of reasons, which I enumerate in the book, but one of the biggest is another kind of law of the universe, and that's the economic law of supply and demand. There is now an infinite supply of content out there. That means there's an infinite supply of advertising inventory. That means that drives prices down, 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 down. And media, which used to be one of the greatest businesses out there, now they can't afford to keep the lights on. And there is no model, even on the horizon, to suggest that that will ever turn around.
The idea behind that is that a lot of what we're going to have is direct connections between companies and consumers. The research behind the book is putting together these threads to say that there's this overall change going on in business where businesses need to be more responsive to people and less responsive to media environments.
That's exactly right. For most of those 300 years, brands, let's say, could kind of dictate their own images. They came up with these advertising campaigns and slogans, and they were able to seduce or flatter or entertain or browbeat consumers into submission. But those days are over because we as consumers are no longer listening to what brands have to say about themselves. No, we're listening to our friends and our neighbors, our colleagues, our family members, and by the way, near total strangers weighing in on brands before we make our moves. Our understanding of what a brand is about is informed almost not at all by the brand itself, except for how that brand behaves in the world.
Right, that's one of the interesting messages. It's one saying that if you don't actually care about the way you conduct your business and you don't actually care about the way you treat people, that you'll face significant difficulties as a result of that in today's media environment where you could have gotten away with it in the past and you can't paper over it like you could in the past.
That's exactly right. For the first time, I look at the world of business and I see it becoming a positive force. I'm talking about, multinational businesses becoming a positive force, not just in the economy, but in the society, because if they continue to be a negative force, they will pay vast penalties in the marketplace. Businesses will have to behave.
You can see the full episode of Up Close in the Interviews category under TJC Original Series on the Jewish Channel On Demand on cable, and you can listen to the full audio of Up Close as a podcast available on iTunes and all podcast players. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable. Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 505, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Cable Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and on Comcast in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.